Hello everyone, this is Poohead189, and today we're going to finally solve one of the most contentious topics in the Dragon Ball fandom, and that is, how strong were the future androids compared to the main timeline androids? I don't think it's an exaggeration to say this is one of the biggest debates in the entire Dragon Ball fandom, right up there with was Gohan Super Saiyan 2 when fighting against Dabura, and the infamous Cuz Sparks debate. And if you don't know what that is referring to, count yourself fortunate. Anyway, this debate really popped up in the late 2000s, but became a big discussion in the early 2010s. The contention has been caused because of two panels in the manga. The first panel is just after the main timeline androids 17 and 18 kick the shit out of the Z fighters, and after they and Android 16 leave. Future Trunks says that they are far stronger than the androids in his timeline, and that he could at least put up a somewhat decent fight against future androids 17 and 18. And just like that, the fandom suddenly thinks the androids of his timeline are far weaker. However, we then need to go to the panels leading up to future Gohan's death, where Android 17, in the future, reveals to future Gohan that he's been holding back against him in their previous fights to have fun. And it's true that the future androids are far more focused on sadistic pleasure and cruel amusement compared to the main timeline ones. And those two panels caused huge confusion in the Dragon Ball fandom for decades. And I really never knew exactly where to stake my own thoughts. Whenever I had to do a debate where I was using the androids as a marker for strength, I needed to give a caveat of assuming the androids are the same strength as the future timeline ones, or assuming they are not. And let me tell you, when I say that I made a discovery in recent months that had me feeling pretty good about myself. Finding out new information from the Dragon Ball text is something that rarely happens nowadays. I felt the same way when I was reading Herodotus a few years ago and checked the dates and realized I was reading the Battle of Thermopylae in the year of its 2500th anniversary. Sorry, some history nerd stuff there. But it gave me the same feeling of discovery. Like, I realized something I've never seen anyone else talk about. And that's really exciting, actually. But what I found out about the androids occurred on chapter 364 of the original manga, right after Imperfect Cell and Piccolo fight, and Cell is confronted by Piccolo and some of the other fighters. Now, right before Cell uses the solar flare, or the Taioken technique, Cell loudly proclaims that Piccolo is the only one with the strength to fight the androids. Now, this is factual for the main timeline, and you might ask what that has to do with the future timeline. Well, Cell himself comes from a different timeline than the main one, and yet he knows the full power of the androids of this timeline, and it matches what we know to be true. And Cell could not have found out about it from sensing them, because you can't sense the strength of Android 17 and 18, meaning he had to just know. And the fact he came from a different timeline showcases that they have the same strength over multiple timelines. If they were as weak as Trunks thinks, then Super Saiyan Vegeta and Trunks and Goku could put up a good enough fight to take them down, potentially. But they're not, and Cell knows it without needing to read their full powers. And this is some pretty definitive evidence that Android 17 and 18 were toying with future Trunks just like they had been with future Gohan. I actually mentioned this in my live stream a month or two ago, talking to Clearin in the chat, and after a brief discussion, it seems like it checks out. And so if you ever hear anyone saying the future androids are weaker than the main timeline androids, just show them this video or tell them that's false from Cell's own knowledge of multiple timelines and their strength being the same. And of course, people also use the Future Trunks movie to kind of prove or disprove how strong they really are, how strong future Gohan is. We can't really use that. The movie's just an adaptation of the Lone Warrior special that Toriyama put out within the Cell and Android Saga chapters. But just remember, if Cell somehow knows that only Piccolo can fight them, then that is the same case in Cell's timeline, and very likely the same case in Future Trunks' timeline, considering the androids of Future Trunks' timeline control their powers and fight weaker to trick future Gohan and likely Trunks. Okay guys, sorry this is a short video, but I just wanted to put that out there. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see y'all later. Bye!